through a little bit of depression at the time. I didn't feel like myself. I didn't feel like anything that I could do would make me more myself. So I was just dissociating. And then out of nowhere, it literally just hit me. It was like, boom. Like, I think this is what it is. And it's so crazy. The relief I felt. I literally turned off the movie. I literally just sat there and I thought in silence to myself. And I was like, this is this.
Yeah.
And then after that, of course, as some other trans women may know, or just trans people, period, normally, like, for it to be covered, your medical transition to be covered by your insurance, they send you to a counselor first. They want to make sure you're not being forced to do this. They want to make sure, like, you're actually sane, things like that. So I had to go through that time period. And actually...
Wait. What was that like? I've never. That's really sad.
It really is.
What was that like?
Actually, so I went to the therapist and she told me, she was like, well, I don't know what they want me to do because she was like, I can't, it's not like I can write prescriptions or anything. She was like, what do they want me to do? And I was like, well, I think they just want you to make sure, like, I'm sane, I'm not being abused or anything like that. And then she was like, oh, well, she was like, okay, well, we're just going to run this like a regular counseling session.
Yeah.
Going through that, I would say at first I was opposed to it because I do feel as though, like, when it comes to that, you have to be sure that that is what you want. But most people are sure. Most people feel like they aren't sure because they feel like, oh, what may this person think, or what may that person think? But normally, when you know, you know. But yeah, that the therapy session actually, it actually did help a lot with unblocking the mental blocks that I had created myself. So most of those who know me, like, I have dissociative amnesia. So there's time periods in my life where it has been so traumatizing that I've forgotten about those time periods. And actually looking up the reassignment surgery was one of those periods because I used to get talked down to about that. Like, even the way that I walked. And talking to my therapist actually, like, unlocked all of that. And she was like, you have a lot of trauma. And I was like, yeah, I know. But yeah, I feel like when it comes to therapy, it does depend on the person. Of course, you have to make sure that you're getting what you need. Because sometimes, unfortunately, you do have those that go to a therapist and the therapist is just there to either get a check from the insurance company, or they're just there because they feel like it's a very, like, how should I say this, like, overly confident, like, oh, I just have all the right answers. And that's not the person that you want. You want the person that listens to you, you know, not the person that's just trying to medicate you, or not the person that's just trying to force a narrative on you. Somebody that actually listens. And I was grateful to have a therapist that actually listened and just was like, just tell me what's on your mind. You know. But yeah, unfortunately, some people do have to go through that where it's not as graceful as my therapy sessions were.
Going into that, let's talk about how you had to handle your mental health during this time period. Like, mental health is a big topic for me in this podcast, guys. This is life. You know, we all go through our things, but handling it in our own right. Like, explain to me, what was that like at the time? Where did that go? You know, obviously, I know there's some, like, dark things in there and, like, really dense feelings and stuff. But, like, I want to know, like, how did that transpire for you?
So my mental health. So going through that period.
We're getting deep, real quick. Just let you guys know.
It's giving trigger warning.
If you're not ready, exactly, trigger warning. If you're not ready, I suggest you just come up to me and ask me how this podcast went. But keep on listening if you're interested and fascinated.
Yes. So my mental health, like I said, I was depressed leading up to it because I kept, by that time I had met another young woman who was transitioning, had started their transition, and they were like, I think like everything is for a reason, and I feel like they were sent into my life at that moment for that reason. And it's like I was just I kept going through it. I kept getting depressed, and I'm like, what's going on? Like, I don't feel like myself, and I feel like I was hitting a very pivotal moment in my life where it was like the veil was finally being released, because that's where I started pushing boundaries that were laid in the mold for me. But after I realized, I was like, there was such a freeing there. But of course, with that freeing, there came a sense of anxiousness.
Yep.
Because now that I've accepted myself and I've removed the blocks from myself in my mind, here comes the family. Here comes the friends that I had during that time. You know, they're so used to this one image of me, and people get comfortable with that. When it came to shaking the table, so to speak, you know, it became really hard. It became very hard, actually. And I did have to get some oomph about myself. I had to like, no, this is what you want. Saying all that to say now, coming out, should I say in quotations, is not easy.
Yeah.
I waited 6 months into my medical transition to tell my mother.
Yeah. How did that go?
So the gag is I wanted to take her to a neutral spot. So I was like, oh, let's go to the Cheesecake Factory.
Not you at the Cheesecake Factory.
I was like,
I love the Cheesecake Factory.
yes, it's so good.
It's so good.
And I was like, we'll eat, we'll have some fun, you know. My mind, I was like, oh, I'll just, you know, just blurt it out. I got so anxious, I didn't even tell her. I didn't even tell her.
Yeah.
I literally waited till I got home the same day. Well, the same night, should I say. And I had a conversation with my cosmetologist mentor, because we had been keeping in touch after school. And she was like, whenever you feel comfortable, because it was something about telling my friends. It's okay to tell your friends, but when you are so close to someone, as in regards to like your family, especially like your mom, that's heavy. You know? So I had told almost everyone else except for my family.
Yep.
And I was just stressing. I was sweating bullets. But something was just, my mentor was like, you know what? You'll tell her when you're ready. And I was like, you're right. I hung up the phone. Literally, something was just like, just go spit it out. You're not ever going to be ready. Just spit it out. So I went in the room, sat at the foot of my mom's bed, started crying, and then told her. It was like, so I always want you to be proud of me, but I'm transitioning. Like, literally just spit it out like that. And then I think my mom was so overthrown. She was like, I'm always proud of you, but if that's what you want, okay. And that was pretty much my coming out for that. And I felt like it was eased just a little bit because I had already came out. Well, actually, I was forced out of the closet beforehand.
Yeah.
You know, but it's like the second time, it's like, oh, this is actually what this is. She was like, oh, okay. Kind of like, I feel like parents know. Parents, they just know. Sometimes they don't want to believe it and they try to force something else on you, but they know.
Yeah.
But yeah, like, it got a little rough after that. my mom kind of like, she said like, oh, I accept you, I love you, but then it goes to my mom still using dead pronouns and dead names, you know. um and that can do a lot to your mental health, because then it makes you question yourself, because it's like, well, I see this in myself, but does everybody else see this? Is this my mind playing tricks on me? Is this a fad? And I feel like that's what every person who transitioned does go through at first. Like, you have to work through that, because you spent your entire life fitting into the mode that somebody else laid out for you. You don't know how much it's influenced you, so you have to work through those influences, you know. Yeah, but I mean, I'm here still, you know.
Yes.
And that means a lot. Like, every day I walk with my head held up high. And I see, like, it has given me a newfound confidence. And I feel like being a part of the ballroom community does help that, but also at the same time, it can affect that. And I don't think everyone knows that. So my advice would always be to surround yourself around those who uphold how you think about yourself truly.
Right.
You know, like, because no one thinks, oh, I'm disgusting. No one thinks that truly. Normally, if that's the case, then that means that you have people around you that have fed into your soul and your spirit. That's not okay.
Yeah. We'll touch on that as well. For those who don't know, go ahead and explain what the ballroom scene is. What's ballroom? What's ballroom?
So, the ballroom community, most people just know it as, like, voguing, but it's so much more than that. Ballroom was created for colored people when we didn't feel accepted, you know, in certain areas. So we bonded together, and we just held on to each other. People of color, I feel like, have always, when the odds have came against us, we've always been able to bond together with love. And that was the sole purpose of ballroom. It was love. It was being able to express yourself, you know, freely, and not necessarily include judgment. Like, yes, we do wall categories and all of that, but it's like, well, girl, if I want to go put on a tutu and a wig, then I can go put on a tutu and a wig and go vote down. Yes,
self-expression.
You know? And it started with the pioneers. You have categories like Vogue, you have categories like realness, you have categories like runway, things of those natures, you know. Drag, that's originally where drag started, and most people don't know that. It started in the ballroom scene, and over the years it has kind of like separated, but you still have drag categories in ballroom. But it's a place, to me, it's supposed to be a place where you go, where you find that freedom, you're able to express yourself. Yeah, that's pretty much what ballroom is. That's what it's meant. It's meant to have fun shade. It's meant to be where I can key with the girls. You know, we can go battle down, vogue down, and then my good sis may win. But I mean, you know, at the end of the day, we all still going to the Waffle House afterwards. So,
right.
You know. You know.
Yeah.
But that is what ballroom is. It is very pivotal, should I say, in every industry, the fashion industry, the music industry. Like, you know, creativity thrives in ballroom, and that creativity has been at the forefront of a lot of things for so long. You know,
I believe the way that you're speaking just brings me back to the show Pose. You know, Pose on FX. Yes. If you guys haven't been familiar with that, that's such an important show to watch, because it talks about how ballroom scene, everything was taken from them. Madonna, the voguing, it was popular, and it was like taken.
Yes.
I remember the episode in the show, and I was just like, that makes a lot of sense. you know, not the same. Madonna is a bad person or anything, but like it was more so of the context of like it.
Yes.
It's represented by someone who is the opposite, or you know what I mean? Yeah,
Yes. And then, so, like everyone is, and this is the thing, we do include people because the love that we have. But a lot of people were upset about the way, like, how it had been done because it gave very much so, well, I created this. And not to say like that was the intention, but we all know how social media does things now and like how it was back then. Like cultural appropriation is definitely a thing, and it's doesn't depend on the race, nationality, none of that when it comes to cultural appropriation in ballroom. Literally, if you're not a part of ballroom, and we have a term for it when it comes to voguing, it's called nogging. People, they get on there and they be like, oh yeah, I'm voguing, and it's like, no, that's not it. You're just
dancing to the song Vogue by Madonna.
Exactly. Like, you don't know the 5 elements, and that's just Vogue Femme. That's not getting into more like old way and new way, like new way and old way. Like old way has 12 elements and new way has 14, so it's like cultural appropriation is something that we are very careful about, but that is what it gave. And then like how Pose, like that was a very dangerous time.
Yes.
For all points of ballroom, because you had women who were, as we call femme queens, women who were transitioning, they knew that they wanted to be this woman that they had in their minds, like they've seen their depiction of themselves in the future, and they're like, this is what I am.
Yeah.
And then you still had the hate from that, and then also you had the AIDS pandemic as well.
Yes.
That hit ballroom heavy.
Pose is just that show.
Yes.
You need an explanation of what this is in this time period and what the queer community was going through at this time period where everyone is afraid of someone with AIDS.
Yes.
You want an explanation? Watch the show. If you guys haven't watched the show,
I would say watch Pose, and if you guys have not, you guys gals, theys, and thems, if you have not watched Paris is Burning, watch Paris is Burning. That gives you, so Pose is a depiction, and a lot of their storylines they got from people in the ballroom community. But Paris is Burning is actually a documentary of people in ballroom now that also itself was cultural appropriation, just for the simple fact that the people that participated in that documentary didn't get anything for it.
Yeah.
But as far as history itself is concerned, it does show a lot of the history. It shows a lot of where we began and what people went through on a daily life,
I think ballroom and the queer community are just like this. Is like there's so much of similarities of being a safe space of self-expression, and always you don't actually have to be queer to be in ballroom. Definitely. But there's the thing, like if you are, that's welcome. If you're not, then that's welcomed as well. It's like it's just art. I think it's just art. It represents art. It doesn't represent what we define ourselves as.
Yes, exactly. And that goes back to like including people. Like ballroom was originated by queer people, but they understand like, no, like this is for everyone. This is to make everyone feel safe, and honestly, I think that's at the core of every queer person. Like we want everyone to feel safe, because a lot of us, some of us have more graceful stories, but a lot of us grew up not feeling safe, not feeling wanted, not feeling a part of the community that we were born in, and ballroom is there for that reason. Like a lot of people, so another Post reference, houses originally were started because you had people that banded together that were family. That's why houses stand by we are a family first, because that's literally like you have the house mother, who normally was a femme queen, majority was a femme queen, but You have the house mother that would take in kids, so they would actually live together and they would look after each other. And you had those houses that form names, like you have, most people know the House of Extravaganza or the House of Ninja or the House of La Beja, Pendarvis, all these houses that took in people, because back in the day it wasn't regulated like it is now, so you can literally kick your child out and they just be out there. And unfortunately back then they would go to the pier. If you don't know what that's about, I suggest you do your research. I don't want to get too far into that, it's a little but they would go to the pier and they would go about making a way for themselves, making a living for themselves, should I say. And unfortunately, that was a lot of what happened back then, especially with the kids in ballroom. So you had the mothers that would pull them out of that, because we do unfortunately have tragic stories like Miss Venus Extravaganza. She is also mentioned in Paris is Burning. She unfortunately, her line of work unfortunately put her in a position that was not the safest. And they found her murdered under her bed in a hotel room, and they still have yet to find her killer.
Yeah.
Till this day, they still have yet to do that. And that just in itself also lets you know, like, how much little, like how much adversity we had to deal with, back in the day. So
there's still a lot of adversity to jump through to this day.
Yes.
And then that kind of pivots us to this conversation we were talking about, representation. Let's talk about representation in everything. So the media, movies, shows, even like commercials, ads. Representation matters, and the more that I see it, the more I feel safe, especially being queer, and anyone who's oppressed.
Yes.
Anyone who's oppressed. So representation matters, absolutely. There's this documentary on Netflix called Disclosure. I think you mentioned that earlier. That is about women who are transitioning but are not represented correctly in movies, shows, commercials. It just throws away the idea of being a trans woman, trans people, not just women, trans men as well, and it makes fun of them. Like the documentary exposes these industries, especially Hollywood, especially actors, actresses, movies, representation. If you look in the early 90s and early 2000s, the movies, the way that trans women are represented, you'll look back and be like, what the that's actually not cool. That's actually, insulting.
Yes.
And it's degrading. It's embarrassing. I cried at the end of that documentary because it was just really difficult, and the way that they put all these clips together and the history they showed it, and like not even the 90s and 80s or whatever, but like back at like early in like the 1900s, early 1900s, they had like movies that represented men dressing as women, and that's still like when it comes down to representation, like just disrespects this process. You know what I mean? How do you feel about representation in the media?
So nowadays, I feel like we are getting better examples of representation. Like you have trans women like Laomi Maldonado, honey. Everybody knows Mother Laomi, honey. You also have Laverne Cox, like you have all these beautiful women. And then there's also handsome men that are trans men, or you have trans masculine or trans feminine for my days and thems. You're getting better representation, but I feel like we still do have some ways to go. Just to touch on Disclosure, because Disclosure like really laid it out there, but it normally how representation worked is it did one or two things. One, it fed to a stereotype about trans people, or two, it made fun of trans people, which in all ultimately both of those things are discriminating, disrespectful, and just degrading. Even though, like, for example, like Tu Wong Fu, like I mentioned earlier, like it didn't necessarily read, you know, transitioning, and that's because of how it was set up. Like, you had, no offense to those actors, but you had 3 cisgendered straight males play this part of transitioning women, and this is not even their story. This isn't something that they've even had to deal with. This isn't something that they've had to live through, you know? And then turn around, you have a movie like Ace Ventura, which people completely have forgotten about. Even I forgot about it until Disclosure. I was like, wait, that did happen. Where towards the end of the movie, they like turn a trans woman around and like unveil her from the backside, and they're like, oh, this is a man, you know? And it's like, that is hurtful. You know, seeing that's hurtful. And then it speaks down. And even in Disclosure, they went way back to how like it's been done, like even since movies have been in black and white, how it's been done, you know? And I feel like representation is so important, and that's why I always try to make sure like I speak confidently in what I do, like all the avenues that I have for my creativity, because I don't want to be another stereotype that they put out, you know? Not saying anything bad to anybody that has to do what they need to do to live. I'm not hating on that. But something that I've always talked about is you don't have to be a stereotype. You can go outside of that. Like most people, like they'll say, they coin the terms working girls. You know, like most people know like trans women as working girls, you know, and that one's really hard because that deals with the fetishization of trans women. Like literally, like unfortunately, like even myself, I've had to deal with that because that's what people think. They're like, oh, this is a fetish. This is all you're good for in a certain sense. And it's like, no, I'm more than that. I'm a human being. So that representation is good because now we're seeing like Laomi, like we're seeing women just out there doing their thing. Like Laomi, I love using her story because she literally created her own lane. She took her gift that she had in ballroom and literally made her own lane, you know? Even Laverne Cox, like Laverne Cox is doing so amazing, you know? And we need that representation. And MJ Rodriguez doing amazing. I think she actually just performed at Pride in LA. Like representation, like I didn't have that when I was young, you know? So, and mind you, again, I'm only 25.
Exactly.
You know?
It's so recent.
Yes. So it's so good to have this new representation. Yes. I just want to keep developing on that because these babies growing up, they know. I feel like they're so much more exposed to it.
Yep.
So they're able to know it, even like, and I want to get rid of that stigma because a lot of people think, oh, this is you're only thinking like that because you've seen this. No. 9 times out of 10, really 11 out of 10, but 9 times out of 10 for the sake of statistics, if you're trans, if you're queer, no matter what you are, you know as a child. You know. Seeing that representation, though, makes you more comfortable to be at peace with yourself. Because you're seeing it. You're like,
yeah,
this is familiar.
Absolutely.
Like, I feel this, you know? And most people are like, oh, well, you didn't think like that when you were young. No, I wasn't comfortable to let you know that I was thinking like that when I was young.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, so representation definitely matters.
Representation is so important. Speaking on that, like my personal story, like, you know, I I was watching comedy specials recently. I've been on this, guys, and I watched Tig Notaro. I don't know if you know who Tig Notaro is.
I want to say I do, but I'm not sure.
She's a pioneer for sure in comedy. Tig Notaro, Fortune famester. She's also a comedian. But these two comedians, like, I am a more masculine woman, so it's like having this representation for me because they're more masculine. They have their own like vibe and little
Yes.
stride. You know what I mean? What did you say it was? A stem? Whatever this vocabulary is.
So you do have stems.
I'm not gonna get too into go
Right,
ahead and
stems is
explain
where
what
it's
that is.
like-
I've never heard that until like recently.
So stems, they used to say it back in school. So a stem is pretty much like the middle between the word that they use is stud and then also a fem.
Stud and femme. Yeah.
But I don't know if that word is. I try not to use that word too much because I don't know. Because again, that's not my lane. That's not my walk of life.
Sure.
So you know,
I've never heard of that. That's just the thing.
Right.
I was just like, that makes sense. Yeah. But then I watched these women confidently on stage, you know, and you know, comedians have to make fun of themselves. They have to be able to laugh at themselves and just, you know,
Right.
Because they already accept who they are. So now it's just like, they're showcasing that they want to be accepted as well by giving you guys a chance to be like, what is it, Fortune opened up an episode of the stand-ups on Netflix, and she was like, hey guys, what's up, just letting you guys know I am a woman. Like, it was just so kind of nonchalant, but it was funny for everyone. But it
Right.
just represented how it's just like, oh, like that for me is the things that I didn't have when I was younger.
Yes.
You know what I mean? Because I had my own insecurities and stuff. And then Tig Notaro as well, like she had opened up her things, and there was a joke in there where she got misgendered, and this I'm not gonna spoil the thing, but she got misgendered during a comedy special, and I'm saying this because I remember it's so funny. She was in a room with this other guy that was introducing her. It was like another comedian, and she had gone about like, oh yeah, like I've never seen him before in my life. Like he was just sharing the same dressing room as me, but he was introducing me. She goes up on stage, he's introducing her, and then the guy goes, I've known this guy for so long. This is my best friend. Then Tig was like, what's happening? And had the producer on the microphone, Tig's a girl. Like, she was saying these things in part of her special. And again, like, it's just, it's not funny, but the way that we can, in a sense, like, have some kind of relief in this, like, representing women who are more masculine is such a big deal as well. So again, like, that goes to show that even making me feel comfortable in my own skin, like, that's a big deal to everyone else. You know what I mean? That's a big deal to anyone who has ever felt uncomfortable or oppressed or like not in their skin. And like, and no, I just find that so good to see and so good to hear, and it just like it makes me happy. And like, hopefully we have more of that, because right now the queer community is more open than it was in the last, I want to say 4 decades, but that does not mean we're all safe. And especially in different countries, because that's where it all differs. You know, we can only see so much in the United States sometimes, but when you go into different, like, maybe South America, overseas, like China, Asia, like, different countries have different ways of handling how they see the queer community.
Yes.
And that's where, again, like, someone who's watching in, let's say, Thailand, watching an American program with someone who is gay, like, that's a big step in the right direction, because that little boy probably already knew. You know, like, you were probably watching and it's like, that's me, and that's okay. But we're still oppressed. There's still so much oppression. There's still so much to change within that realm. And, you know, hopefully one conversation at a time could help. One conversation at a time could help others feel what they need to feel just a breath out, because this is you and this is okay and you're loved,
Yes. Also, to say, because I just thought about it as you were saying that, to say, don't think that just because I said most people do know at a young age, that doesn't mean that you have to know.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't matter at the age, because like I said, I had dissociative amnesia. I've had trauma. There was things, so there may be things there you may not know until later on in life, and that is okay. The importance is that we do have the representation, so that way when you do know, one, you know what to do.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think people understand, like, literally, like, even medically. When I went to my doctor to let him know, I want to transition, this man literally almost blew a casket because he didn't know what to do.
Another thing, education.
Yes.
Education on this.
Yes.
is so important. Because you want to do it safely.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, and that actually was a thing, especially in the 90s and even early 2000s. Like, you had people that would go to their homegirl to get pumped up, and it would cause health issues. You had people who literally passed away, may they rest in peace, due to that, So education and representation is so important. It's not just, like we said, representation in the stereotypical way, because that's not the representation that we want.
Yeah.
We want to be able to see trans women and trans men, or trans femme and trans mask, be able to just be happy in representation, to be educated in that representation, to feel like they actually play a part in that representation, for that little person to look, or even that more mature person, or more seasoned person, as I like to say, look and be like, you know what, this makes a lot of sense, and then be educated on it, so that way, even if they can't get it in their hometown, they know where they can go to get it safely. That's the key word.
That's so important. That's so important. Representation, education in the queer community is everything.
Yes.
We can have representation. We're getting more of it. But we need to make sure people know.
Yes.
What to do, how to handle these things if they're scared, or if they're like, if they need something, it's like a medical emergency. Like, what do we do?
Yes.
So, yes, that speaks for pride. That speaks for pride. You have a show. Let's get into this. You have a show on June 30th. You have a show. Maybe it's your show. You're walking.
Yes, I am walking.
Where is this?
Go
ahead and explain where, when. This is gonna come out relatively before then.
Yes. So, let's look it up here.
We have, like, what is this? Jeopardy music? We love that.
Okay.
I'm so excited. I'm bringing all my friends. We're all going supporting Honest.
Aw.
Of course.
I love y'all so much.
We already know this. Thursday night, it's lit.
Yes. So it's Thursday night, June 30th. The ball itself will start at 10 p.m. and the address is... Should I say the address?
You can tell where it is.
Yeah, we'll say it's in the Arts District. I'm sorry, y'all. I'm a little paranoid.
Of course. It's in the Art District downtown.
Yes.
June 30th. Is there a specific, like, event name?
It's going to be... It's called the Clubhouse. It is the launch party.
Clubhouse launch party.
Yes, by the icon, Jasmine Couture. Honey, the icon. You have to know it's the icon. The I, the C, the O, the N.
It's so exciting. I've never been. It's my first time going.
You're gonna love it.
Of course, I already do. I already feel comfortable. I already feel like ready. Like, it's gonna be a good time.
Yes, and then of course, if you are interested in going, and you are in our area, of course, definitely I would say reach out to definitely Kat or myself.
More information on the event. Again, if you guys are watching this, you're probably my friends. So y'all probably going with me anyway.
Period.
But if you're not, then come through because we're all gonna party.
Very that.
Yes.
And it's going to be such a fun atmosphere. Like, this has been the biggest ball that Vegas has had in years.
From what I read in the entire post, it's pretty big.
Yeah, it's pretty big.
There's a lot of people. There's gonna be a lot of people there.
The girls are coming, honey.
Ooh.
They coming to storm from out of state, honey.
That's it. Yeah, exactly. There's gonna be so many people everywhere. It's gonna be such a good time. So we're gonna wrap this up soon. Getting into a little more of Miss Honest, the truth. I gotta tell you, she introduced herself one time. We were on the phone, and I just remember she was at Blueberry Hill on the phone. And the hostess was like, "What's your name?" "Oh, it's Honest, like the truth." Like the truth, and I was like, "That's the truth."
Yes.
And that stuck with me ever since. The truth.
I live for
It's the
it.
truth.
You know, my name is Honest, like the truth.
We're very into spirituality. We're spiritual beings.
Yes.
And we bonded really over that, I believe.
Yes.
There's a lot of things we bonded over, but like being spiritual, signs, like past lives, you know, energy. I have tattoo energy in the front of my face. Like, we just use that word 24/7. Like,
definitely.
take a shot for every single time I say energy. Yeah, out.
Okay, out.
You out. So, yes, it's really refreshing as well. I think spirituality and just the self-expression is that's the part of it for me. You get to be who you are. There's no like conforming into anything. Society is really rigid, but that's society.
Yes.
You know, or that's the way people were conditioned.
Yeah.
But it's no one's fault because everyone has a choice.
Very that.
So, what are you into? What are you into?
When it comes to spirituality, I do have a open mind per se, but definitely energy. When it comes to reading energy, and then also, like, as some people know, it is energy manipulation, which that is completely different. I don't want people to think that we're manipulating people. That's not what that means.
Yeah.
Pretty much energy manipulation means just owning who you are and being unbendable to other energies around you. Yeah, like, I always say, like, people be like, "Oh, what do you believe in?" And I'm like, "Oh, I'm not religious. I'm spiritual."
Yeah.
Because that leaves the open mindset. Like, I believe in love. I feel like at the end of it all, like, love plays a huge part in spirituality. Science, spirituality, it all ties together.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, you know? But I also feel like spirituality, how you can tell when someone is truly spiritual versus just saying it just to say it. It's pretty much like they don't push themselves on someone. We love regardless. Like, you and I, we just bonded over spirituality, you know, and just listening to each other. Like we came up with what I don't want to say came up with, but
I said it in the intro.
Yeah.
If you guys listen to the summer intro.
Yes. Like the three C's: communication, consideration, and comprehension. Goes a long way.
And free versus dense.
Honey, free flowing versus dense. Instead of necessarily positive
or negative.
Exactly.
Just a shift. Just a mental shift.
Yes. It really did open a lot for us, actually.
Yeah. Makes me see things differently.
Yes, completely.
Yeah. There's a purpose to everything that we do. There's a purpose and timing and a way that we just get placed in different situations and circumstances that make us either break or either make us or break us. Literally. You know, that's not a cliche. I believe that, like, we get thrown into things sometimes because that's what we were supposed to be doing. We won't have control over that. Really, we don't have control over that.
Oh, we really don't.
We can control the way we see it.
Yes.
The way we can learn from it, but we can never control the outcome. We can't change anything that when it's not supposed to be changing. If then you're throwing into yourselves into a pattern of like karmic bad luck. Because we're not going to be doing that. We're not going to be doing that. I'm going to do that again. That's manipulation on that spectrum.
Yes.
Yeah, can't change it. Can't change the way you see like or someone feels about you, or you know what I mean? Like it's just that doesn't matter.
Exactly.
You know, ways to protect ourselves. You know, there's ways to protect ourselves always. Well, that's a conversation for another time. I feel like we go 3 hours into spirituality and everything in between. So there is, speaking on Pride, shout out to the Center, Las Vegas community. It is the LGBTQIA plus safe space, and you can volunteer, you know, talk to everyone and just find your niche there. Do you have, last thing before we go, what is your advice for our queer community? Whoever's listening right now.
My advice, I don't know why I'm feeling this, but my advice from the most seasoned person to the most youngest person: believe in yourself, be authentically you. Don't be afraid to take up space, and don't be afraid to reach out. Reach out. If you feel the need, like, I can't do this alone, you're not alone. Mm-hmm. There's always someone, even if it's me or Kat, there's always someone here.
Yeah.
And love yourself. Don't let anybody deter you from loving yourself.
You are loved in every step of this, in every step of the way. Like, I think that's just the perfect way to end this little podcast. Honest, thank you so much for joining me today. Thank you for this conversation. Thank you for all the insight, and I hope it reaches out to people who needed to hear these messages and our conversation here today. You guys, again, we are on Spotify, iTunes, YouTube, Instagram. What's your Instagram, if you don't mind?
Oh, my Instagram is the House of One, spelled TheHausofone.
House of One. And don't forget to follow me on Instagram at @KatMugat. Again, thank you guys for listening. I really appreciate you guys. If you're on YouTube, don't forget to like, comment, share, subscribe. Let me know what you think about this podcast. Let me know if you like the conversation, if it resonated with you and what you learned from it. I will see you guys again. We will see you guys again. Happy Pride.
Happy Pride.
For those who are out and newly out, congratulations to those who took the step to continue to live freely in their skin. That's big. All right. Thank you for listening. This has been Cat Attacks Life. Love you guys, and I'll see you next time.
Bye.
Bye.